Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire.
All right, welcome back to part two of Metropolis. In part one, we quickly grew New York to 80,000. We ran on a bunch of nice profitable trains. We loaded up logs and beer and meat into New York. We added milk and veggies and fruit. So we're doing a pretty good job supplying New York. It's growing steadily. And we also set up our clothing coming out of both Albany and Baltimore, direct deposits, if you will, into New York, with supporting textile plants in Washington for the Baltimore one and Syracuse for the Albany one. So we've got the clothing set up. We also, in the last episode, went out here to the Pittsburgh area and went over to the west of Pittsburgh and found fruit and sugar. Started shipping that into Pittsburgh, bought out an industry in Pittsburgh and replaced it with a distillery so we could make alcohol. We started our alcohol kind of early so that our alcohol could be brought into New York timely fashion. We only needed to do it in one place because it would be very clumsy to try to come up with another place to run alcohol into New York at this point. So we're in good shape on our clothing. We're in good shape on our alcohol. Those are the two kind of special ones you have to make sure you get. And basically we just want to keep it growing, keep it going. This is our Pittsburgh to New York line, and we've got it set a little unusually. We've got on the Pittsburgh end, I'm forcing it to run full with a priority on alcohol because obviously that's its main goal is to get alcohol into New York. As it turns out, it's also shipping textiles in there, which is great because New York also consumes cloth as well as clothing. And so the Pittsburgh line is really running great. It's running full trains to New York and typically full trains back, bringing back lumber and furniture and paper and passengers and mail. So we're getting full both ways. So it's becoming a really good line for us and working like crazy. Now here's the thing I got to do. That distillery in New York was driving me crazy. It has to go. We don't get credit for shipping alcohol to New York if we're producing it in New York. So that New York distillery would actually hurt us. It would hurt us big time. In fact, it had to go. Because if it's going to supply all the needs for New York for alcohol, we wouldn't be shipping them any. So we've got to get rid of that, and I wanted to replace it with something that was log-based because we've got that log camp right up there, just north of New York. It's very easy for us to get logs, so we're going to put a paper mill in here because a paper mill uses logs, of course, and now we've got three log-based, wood-based industries in New York. We've got sawmill, furniture, and paper, and that way that one line up there that we've got running with our logs is going to supply all three industries and keep New York happy and satisfied from that point of view. So now that we've got all three of them in there wood-based, decided to need to ramp up even though it's a short run, we need to ramp it up and run more trains from the logging site down into New York to make sure that we can keep up with the demand. And one train's doing great, but we need more than that. And this will be an extremely profitable line for us because it's a short haul of freight. We know that the short hauls of freight in a strange way are much better than the long hauls in freight, but they'll make tons of money. And we'll keep New York happy by supplying all three of its industries with plenty of logs. And we're still working on, bumping up the tailors, making sure that we can get them in there, get that stuff going as fast as we can, and get the clothing ticked off as fast as we possibly can. Same thing with the refinery, or distillery, excuse me. We'll bump that up to keep our alcohol going. And you can see New York is eating this stuff up faster than we can produce it. So there's nothing wrong with expanding and sending more and more and more. Now the paper mill we're going to expand because we wanted the logs to be as big a portion of the demand in New York as we can get it. Because we know we can supply logs and we want that the amount of logs they need to take up the biggest portion we can make of the overall demand in the city, because that will help us keep the growth steady, because if we can keep logs coming in there. And you can see our other cities are growing nicely, the ones that are connected to New York, even though we're not really trying to grow them. They're just kind of growing, you know, Baltimore and Washington are helping one another grow. New York's helping everybody grow. Everybody else, of course, is helping New York grow. That's their job. That's their primary purpose on this particular scenario. But we're getting growth everywhere, which is great because that just ups your volume of all the stuff that you carry and makes your rail lines more profitable. And any industries you own, you can expand them and make them more profitable. It's a lovely thing. At this point,
My reporter has scrutinized your business down to the smallest detail.
I don't want to kind of poo-poo the rest of the mission here, but at this point we're kind of done in terms of getting, passing the scenario because we've got New York set up with good supplies and lots of varied industries. It's getting textiles and clothing. It's getting, well, let's see, we'll be getting cheese. It is getting paper and lumber and furniture. It's getting beer and meat. It's getting milk and veggies and fruit. It's getting a lot of stuff. So we've got New York set up to grow. So New York will just keep right on growing for us. There's not really a lot we're going to have to do. We can keep making things a little bit better, but basically we've got New York ready to grow and bump right through that 250 goal, no problem. So really it comes down to, at this point, playing out the mission and buying out a competitor, which can be very hard on these on these very hard AI competitors, because what's happening, if you'll notice, they are growing very quickly. They're growing. There's a point here where we look at Beatrix, for example, and she's at 16 million total cost to buy her out, and we look at her maybe a year later, and she's almost double that. She's like 27 million. So one of the reasons they're growing, it's not that they have such great rail lines. They do have rail lines that they're making money on, but they're also buying these businesses. So when we go in and try to buy a business, they're overbidding us in some cases and getting these businesses. Well, these businesses are just making a killing. So their value is going up all the time. So it's very difficult to buy the AI competitor, particularly if you wait too late. So one critique I would have of this particular game is I waited too late to take out my competitor and work on that. The other thing. Did you notice how Beatrice's picture popped up there a second ago and she was saying something to us? I would love to be able to click on that whenever they say, like Don Lorenzo will say something like, well, I've set up an industry now, it's up to you to supply the raw materials. Well, if I knew what he was talking about, I would go do that. But I don't. Like, see her picture there? Now, that particular one you wouldn't be interested in, but if she was saying something like, something's wrong with one of your trains, well, I'd like to know where that is. And sometimes it's hard to find it on these maps, and you have to search around. It'd be nice to be able to just click on her image and take it to what it is she's talking about. That would be a nice little enhancement, I think, for the game. Okay, you can see how well our Pittsburgh to New York line's doing. We've got 7 trains running, and they're all making excellent profit. We're just going to keep expanding our distillery, which you can also see is making us very, very good money. And you know, we took that meat industry out once and put it in the distillery, and now a private investor has gone back in and put a meat industry in there. So it's actually helping to grow Pittsburgh without our involvement, so to speak. And you want all these cities to grow because obviously if you're running trains between them, you can get more goods, you can get more passengers, you can get more mail, you can make more money. And it's been through the whole time, it's a constant struggle to try to keep a steady supply of meat and beer in New York. We do an okay job and we can keep it going, and we definitely needed to do it, but it's very difficult to get enough going to keep them fully supplied, because New York is a big consumer now, and Baltimore's consuming, and Washington's consuming. So that meat is actually going to 3 cities from Baltimore. It's going to New York, Baltimore, and Washington, and you need to have a fully developed industry in order to support 3 large cities. So probably should have done even more upgrading of that and more trains coming from that cattle line. That would be another little critique. Okay, at this point, because of the way thank you, Beatrix. When we ran the Pittsburgh to New York line, we jumped on that line we had that's running wheat to Albany. And what it really did was make it slow and difficult for us to get the wheat to Albany. So that's hurting our beer business as well. So what we're going to do to address that is we're going to run a line from that wheat farm that's up near Buffalo into Albany directly. And that way we can get a more steady supply of wheat into Albany, which means we'll get a more steady supply of beer into New York. And this would probably, in hindsight, you could consider doing this right off the bat. This might be a better way to go. It's a fairly long line, but it's fairly flat and cheap, so this might have been a better way to go than running the line the way we did, but obviously what we did worked just fine. But now we'll have a nice steady supply of wheat into Albany, and like I said, a steadier supply of beer into New York.
Oh dear, there seems to be a little problem with one of your locomotives.
There, right there. If I could have clicked on her, I could have said, okay, where is that problem? Now, you can look for your triangles, but if you play like I do, where you're going to have these trains assigned to run full into a city with supplying, say, fruit. Well, fruit is not going to be consumed fast enough for that train to be constantly running. So you're always going to have these little triangles with the exclamation points on them saying the train is loading. Now, sometimes train loading it means there's a problem, but sometimes it just means that you're keeping up with demand. It's not a problem. So anyway, here we're going to get rid of these trains that we're trying to run to Albany through that station around New York, and we of course replaced them with that line up there to the north from Buffalo, the Buffalo wheat. And I told you in part 1 we'd be spending a lot of time on that screen right there, the bond screen. We issue a lot of bonds in this. We need a lot of money to go at the pace we want to go at. So don't be afraid of debt. Debt is your friend. And I know I've written this. Now I'm going to get a chance to say it. I hate the way they changed the resource assignment. Now you have to hit 2 clicks. You have to pick it, look at down at the bottom, and then go to the next one and find the next category of person you want. I want to pick one and move on to the next category like they used to have it, because it was faster. And I end up making the same mistakes because I'm always going so fast there. I want to get that out of the way so I can get back to doing what I'm doing. And so anyway, all right, enough griping. But I do wish they'd go back to the way they did it before. They probably did it because people are saying, oh, I can't see my masses and I want to be able to make sure I have the perfect combination. And to be honest with you, it's not that important. It's nice to have the good combinations, but you just want to make sure you've got these staff on there somewhere helping you out. And when you can get the perfect combinations, that's great. But if you've got enough time to just worry about those combinations all the time, I would suggest you're probably losing focus on some things that are more important. Anyway, all right, enough. Stop that. Okay, so now we want to run corn into New York. So I'm experimenting with what's the best way to do it. And I decided what I'd really like to do, I was going to run it through that number 4 platform there in Albany and build another line that would go down here maybe and hook up with the Albany line below Albany. But I decided, why can't I just run it straight into the line that's already connected and run it through platform 1? And I'm pretty sure that's what I'm going to end up doing here. Because I'm looking it over, trying to decide, okay, how's this going to work? What am I going to have to do? What's the trade-off here? And I decide, why don't I just run it through platform 1? And in that way, it's already connected. There we go. There, I'm getting smart. And one of the nice things about when you start having some money is you can do stuff like this. You can build a bridge over top of a couple of lines, and you don't mind spending, the money to build a line like that. $135,000 to go not very far, because you got it. You got the money. In the early game, you wouldn't think about doing one like that because money is too tight. Now it's important that we double track this back portion from the Corn Station to Albany so that we can get those trains out of the way and they won't be holding up the Albany, New York line. So even though we didn't do it all the way back, it's important that we have a place for those trains to go to get out of the way so that they're not holding up, like I said, the Albany to New York line. So now we can run corn into New York. All right, now we look to find out, are they getting the cheese? Remember, we want to run cheese from Washington. We've got a cheese a dairy industry. Let's take advantage of it. So we'll start out by running it and hooking it up with the main line from Baltimore to New York. And I say start out because I don't think we'll end up that way. But the idea was reuse the track we already have. We already got a connection going in there. Why not reuse it and take advantage of it? Okay, now we can start running. We're going to emphasize cheese, but we can do dairy products. We can do dairy products and textiles, and as you can see, it's loading up with textiles first, and we'll see why in just a minute, because we haven't really built that cheese industry up. So now we're going to go down and start supplying that. I'm just going to call it cheese. I know it's a dairy industry. The cheese, we're going to support the cheese by bringing milk in, so we can make more money hauling the milk. Of course, we can bring milk can be consumed in Washington as is, and it can also be used to convert into cheese, which we can then send feed Washington and Baltimore and New York. So. So now we can run milk into Washington to support that cheese industry, and lots of good things will happen from doing that. Okay, I did make a mistake there. If you notice, I didn't double track the line from the milk up to that main freight line, and I should have, because now what could happen potentially, I don't think it ever does because the demand is so high and everything's so spread out, but what could happen is our milk trains could actually get stopped on that main line waiting for that tractor clearer to go into the station to get milk, and that would hold up our cotton delivery as well. So I should have double tracked, similar to the way we talked about with the corn. I should have double tracked that milk, that little spur of the milk line back to the station to have a place for my trains to go to get out of the way of that main freight line so that the cotton could keep coming through. Now I'm trying to see, can I run wheat directly into New York? I'd like to be able to kind of run down there and jump on that line, that Pittsburgh line, and deliver. But now I've got to kind of mess up where that doesn't work. So now you can see we're in great shape on the clothing. We're in good shape on the alcohol. We're growing the city. Again, you know, we're kind of done at this point, except for just playing it through. And like I said, buying somebody out.
Hey, look, I'm very sorry to have beaten you.
You can see there that meat and beer continues to be a problem to get enough meat and beer into New York. We're getting it there, but we're not getting it there enough. And here I finally put repairs on Baltimore. Should have been done long ago. And again, that's another one of when you get mid-game and you've got your economy rolling, you can do all this stuff. You can put in more supply towers. You can put in more, you put in maintenance everywhere. But at the beginning, you have to watch every penny. So we can see we can get more money, but we can't get enough money. We need a lot of money to buy out these competitors. Here, they were up to $27 million that Beatrix would cost us.
Unfortunately, one of your trains didn't make it.
Now, I would love to buy that brewery and bump it up. So I'm going to issue a bond and give it a shot. And this is where the competitors really get tough on me. We're already bidding a huge amount for that brewery. Now, Don Lorenzo is overbidding us. We're going to try it again. Don Lorenzo's having none of it. We're going to try again. We're up to $4 million for this little. Now, Beatrix jumps in, and I know I can't win. So I'm just going to let them battle it out and hopefully be able to buy them later to own that thing. Okay, so now I'm trying to figure out why can't I run wheat to New York? And I've obviously got the signals messed up a little bit. And Anglo-Saxon pointed out in a comment, and I can't find the comment now to respond to him, so I'll just respond here, that sometimes when I do these mergers, I set the directions in a couple of ways, but then I don't check. I'm not thorough in checking all of them. So I agree. That's a fault of mine. I get in too big a hurry sometimes. The nitty gritty details of some of this are where I typically come up a little short. You've got to get all those lines going exactly right, and I cannot tell you why that spot right there, right where I'm pointing, right in there. I don't know why that is gray like that. I think the track is not even being used is what's happening, but that's a little weird. But anyway, I'm trying to get it set up so it looks like we should be able to run wheat down to New York, but I decided to just give up the ghost and say, you know what, let's just hook it up back a ways where we know it'll work, and that way we can run wheat into New York and give it a steadier supply. So there's the line, and you can see it's not using that little piece in the middle. Who knows if that piece is even there? It could be just a little defect that piece isn't even really there. I think it is, though. I think it's when we did one of our mergers, it messed it up somehow. So now we're just going to do a simple connection back further where we know it'll work and set our lines. We're going to have to get rid of that one signal, I think. Yeah, it's working. So now we can run wheat. We can sneak a wheat train in there in our Pittsburgh to New York line and start getting a steadier supply of wheat into New York. And we want to double track it back so that it can get out of the way. So that, just like we said a couple other times, we want it to be able to get back if we can get out of the way. But it's a really short little line here. And somehow, some way, this little section of track is a little messed up. I'm going to assume it's something I did, but it's hard to deal with. So I decided to deal with it by only running one train. That was my solution. And again, the meat and beer was just really hard to keep up with it. And you see Don Lorenzo's the one who won the bid. He paid probably $4 or $5 million for that.
Unfortunately, one of your trains didn't make it.
So there, we've passed our clothing goal. We're in great shape on the alcohol. So now it's just grow New York and buy a competitor, as we've said all along.
Could you keep out of this? You're driving the price up.
One of your trains isn't doing what it should be doing.
Now, one of the things we could have done, I probably should have done that, like that beer line, the beer from. Okay, we passed our alcohol demand. Anyway, one of the things I should have done probably is from Albany, I should have said that line going up to Syracuse, don't take beer. In Baltimore, the line going to Washington, don't take beer. And that way, don't take meat. And that way, the meat would all be going to New York. The beer would all be going to New York. That would have been better. But that would have just made us grow faster, which, as you'll see, is not a problem here. We're paying a lot of interest on our bonds right now. We've got big debt out there, but that's what's allowed us to do the things we've been able to do to keep this thing going.
Oh no! It looks like one of your trains has a problem.
Now, I thought about they're actually building a warehouse to pump furniture into to keep that furniture industry going, because we're actually creating more furniture than we can use. Now, this would be, if you want to think about a regional warehouse, build a warehouse out a distance away, pump furniture into it, and then use that to supply furniture to some other area that doesn't have a furniture factory in it. That would be a good use for all that excess. But I've got so much going on here, so many lines, and so much going on. I'm trying to stay task focused. I don't do that. I am going to do a little video on the regional warehouse concept to kind of explain what I just went over in the warehouse series. So that'll be coming up. Now that my voice is back, that'll be coming up fairly soon. But you can see down through there, except for the cheese, we're doing a pretty good job supplying New York with just all kinds of stuff. So, again, New York is a well-supplied city, which is, of course, the point of this scenario.
My reporter has scrutinized your business down to the smallest detail. your trains isn't doing what it should be doing.
So now we're going to raise as much money as we can. We're up to about 18 million and start buying somebody. Beatrix is going to cost us a huge amount of money. We can only afford quite a small chunk of her. What's Don Lorenzo's also 36 million it's going to cost us, but we're going to buy about half of them.
Go on, grab it. This increases the price of my fast trains.
And we'll keep nibbling at him as we make money in an attempt to purchase him outright. As you can see, he's still going to cost us a lot of money. And our economy is good. We can, handle that kind of debt and cover it. But the combination of having such a big debt and also not continuing to build while we're trying to buy out the competitor makes it really hard to raise the funds fast enough, particularly when he has all these businesses that are just making him go up and up. I mean, he's just, his value keeps climbing even though we're buying him. See, we can only buy like 3%. To buy a decent amount, 10% is $4 million. All right, so as I've said multiple times, Newark growth is not a problem. We've got them stocked and fed and being fed all kinds of different things, and they're in great shape. They will grow. The whole thing is buying a competitor, and honestly, we just waited too long. We just couldn't quite get there. So I guess the one thing to do would be go back and try to buy the competitor earlier. I'm not exactly sure when I would suggest doing that because there were a lot of crucial things we had to do. I actually honestly thought about cutting off a couple of these lines and stunting New York's growth for a while to give me more time. But that would be kind of cutting off your nose to spite your face because when we cut it off, we'd also be cutting off a lot of our revenue sources and would make it difficult to raise the funds anyway to do what we were trying to do here. Now, there is one thing here I decided to do. I decided that there's too much traffic on that main line between Baltimore and New York, and so I'm gonna get that Washington traffic off it. I'm gonna move them down here to a southern route and get them out of the way. So that's what's going on right here. I've just got too much. See all those trains stacked up right up there, heading into New York. Don't want that. So we're gonna have an alternate way for our Washington folks to get to New York. Okay, I was kind of hoping they would jump over there, but they didn't. That's okay. So we're going to use a waypoint in order to force them to take that southern route. So there we've set a waypoint, and we've got to get them going in both directions that way. There we go. So after Washington, we want you to go over there, and that's going to force them to take southern route. And we've got to go to each of the trains that follow that line and give them the waypoint. So by using that waypoint, we can say, hey, we know you got a choice, but here's the choice we want you to make. We want you to go down here to the south. Okay, and now that we've got a dedicated line, we can run an extra train because we've taken that traffic off of the Baltimore to New York main line and created a Washington to New York line. And I also try, since it has less traffic, I try to see if I can get that veggie line to run down there, but it doesn't really work. I probably could have just deleted the station and moved it, but it wasn't really a big deal. I was just trying to see if I could maybe sneak the veggies into New York on that Washington line, but it just doesn't quite fit. So I just put it right back on where it was. And unfortunately, the train was smart enough to go right back on the line the way it used to be. So now we've got better traffic flow. We've got the cheese and textiles from Washington going straight into New York without competing with the Baltimore line. The Baltimore line should run more smoothly. That should help us with our meat situation a little bit. So everything got better. Ironically enough, that actually hurt us because the more efficient we get at this point, in a way, the worse off we are because we're in a race to try to buy a competitor, and we're just having a hard time raising enough cash fast enough because the competitor keeps growing on us. Maybe some saboteurs and reporters. This probably would have been an opportunity for me to use saboteurs and reporters and stuff like that to try to drive my opponent's stock price down. I didn't do that, so shame on me. That might have been the magic elixir here that would have helped, but no matter.
A little competition creates business, so my new station won't do any harm.
You should look for your train.
You can see how expensive he is now. Look at that. That's just...
New York is now the biggest city on the East Coast and well on the way to becoming a global city.
Okay, there's our 180 goal. Now we've got our 250 going left, and we are growing quickly, so looking good. But not looking so good here. At this point, I'm actually looking to see if I can sell something. I'd like to sell something, raise some money, but you can't do that. So I couldn't figure out a way to do that. So I'm kind of stuck, if you will. And you can see that brewery, Don Lorenzo, he's got that up to a level 5, which is actually helping us grow New York, but killing us in terms of buying him, because it's making him more valuable and it's making New York grow faster, which gives us less time to raise the capital to buy him out. All right, this just keeps on like this the rest of the way. So I'm going to fast forward it to the end because I just keep trying to buy him and I just really can't grow the capital fast enough. I try to hold off and buy one last big giant bond, and it becomes a race between New York growing and the bond, and New York wins. I basically do too good a job growing New York, and it ends up actually keeping us from getting that one task done, that one optional task. Okay, so we get our message that says we've completed the mission, but for some reason it doesn't stop there. It kind of keeps going for a bit, and I'm wondering what's going on here. We've got everything done except, as I said, that one buy out the competitor. We didn't get that done, but here we go. Finally, we go to the final screen. We did all right. We got a 46.3 overall, 18.5 on our timing, 9 out of 10 tasks. President rating, 46.3. Not bad. Good job. Hope that was helpful for you, those of you who are struggling with this one. And that'll do it.
I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player, and I hope you'll join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.